So here's why the future is bright for the Phillies. They've got the draft coming up this Sunday. We had a chance to hear firsthand from the assistant GM, Brian Barber, who was talking through the process that they go through for the Phillies. And as he was talking yesterday, he was discussing how, it's very difficult when you're going through the draft because exactly as we just alluded to, you're projecting where players are going to be. Someone like Orion Kirkering, he's like, we didn't know Orion would be ready for the majors that fast. Aiden Miller, we didn't know how he was going to turn out and how Justin Crawford, different guys. So you don't know who you're drafting. You're drafting kids. You're drafting young. And it was very enlightening. I mean, I already kind of knew this, but it was reassuring to hear it again of really their process, to how they go about planning for who they want to go after, who they're prospecting, and their process even to plan, knowing if you're later on in the draft, you don't know who's going to fall through. Like, ideally, you want to be 30th, as he was mentioning. That means you won the World Series. That means you're picking last. But anywhere in that bottom half, in general, you have no idea who's going to fall through the ranks.
Yeah, I know we mentioned that, they did not expect Aiden Miller to fall for them. Luckily, he did, and he's performing very well. But my big takeaway is that just that the organization does have a good plan, and it takes a while to get to a point where you feel comfortable that the organization is well run. For a long, long time, Phillies fans know that was not the case. You did not have confidence in the front office to do what they needed to do. Now they've sort of earned the benefit of the doubt. They've turned around the major league squad, tons of talent in the minor leagues, and you just get the feeling that they know what they're doing with the draft here too. It's, as you mentioned, Renee, a really, really tough task. You're comparing high school players and what was their level of competition. You've got college players out there. You can't really just put their numbers up against each other. And you really have to do some in-depth scouting. But you just get the feeling that the Phillies are sort of well run now. And it comes all the way from the top with Dombrowski and all the way down through player development and drafting. It's really a strange place to be for longtime Phillies fans, to have this just sort of confidence that the team's gonna, they might not get everything right, but they've got a process and they know what they're doing here.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a process. It's very difficult and different from most leagues because you look at other leagues. As soon as somebody gets drafted, you're initially trying to figure out. Like a Jared McCain, for instance, gets drafted by the Sixers. You go straight into the summer league. You go straight into the team. The NFL, soccer, everything else, you are jumping right into the league. Whereas with baseball, of course, there's a process of going through the minor league system, the farm system, development is there. And as Brian Barber was mentioning, you also have a wide range of types of players. You have some players that have the resources of having like a pitching coach or something like that. And then you have others that might just be raw talent and maybe they don't have as much of an opportunity, resources, the money even to afford those types of things. But regardless, it's like, as he was mentioning, none of that directly correlates to success in the minor league system, let alone with the Phillies.
Right.
You have no idea how it's going to pan out. Now, the Phillies have done a good job of developing their talent. We see that even with the Phillies, as you bring in an Orion Kirkering, for instance, where they're able to elevate their game. Even Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strahm, like as we talk about the success of the Phillies, a big part of that is their development.
Yeah.
So for them, Brian Barber was just mentioning, essentially, you want to try to figure out who has the best chance of making it to the majors. It's not even a positional thing. And I think even that was different. Like a lot of teams, you're looking at, okay, if you're the Eagles, you might need a corner, you might need a linebacker. If you're the Sixers, you might need a shooting guard or a point guard or a backup center. For the Phillies, you're not even thinking about that.
Yeah.
You're just going into it like, we just want to get the best possible player.
Right, because you have no idea. I think Barbara made the point on the call that you have no idea what your needs are going to be 5 years from now. So, it's not a great idea to try to project and draft for positions of need in the future. It's just because it's just so unpredictable.
It is. And that's even something like, I know a lot of times we will look at, you've got someone like Alec Boehm who's young and locked in. I know it was mentioned by Linda in the chat earlier, like, I don't want to see Boehm at first base anymore, which I agree with. I actually prefer him at third base, but it is what it is. But we've got Alec Boehm at third base. We don't need a third baseman. You don't know. You actually have no
know.
idea what the future is going to hold in terms of health, in terms of contracts. I know it was mentioned about, someone like Kyle Schwarber and different guys who they still want to lock in for the future. You don't know how things are going to shake out. So there's no real way to plan for the future. And on the other side, you don't know which players are going to pan out or not. That's why we talk so much about the prospects with like a grain of salt, because given their numbers and success at the minor league level, AAA, AA, single A, you don't know how that's going to translate into the game. And we've seen so many players over the years that have been up and down, and they don't ever make it to the majors.
Yeah, it's very true, and it's a big reason why a lot of fans, I think, are ready to just ship off whatever prospects are necessary. To bring in a final piece or two and get the championship this year, because we've seen a lot of prospects come through town that did not pan out at all or were traded away. I remember everybody lost their minds over Sixto Sanchez being traded for JT Realmuto, which is hilarious in retrospect, but at the time it was a tough decision. People were so high on Sixto, thought he might be an ace for a team for years, and it worked out. But it could have easily gone the other way.
Easily.
So again, it goes back to just having confidence in the front office of the Phillies to be able to assess these players accurately and make the right call. And so far, more often than not, in the past few years, they've made the right call.
Yeah.
You mentioned Jeff Hoffman. I mean, he'd never had anything close to this level of success prior to joining the Phillies. I think the hitting and pitching coaches, Kevin Long and Caleb Cotham, have become actual draws, I think, for players that know that, if they come here, they'll be working with some of the best coaching. I think players like playing for Thompson. I think they know it's an organization. They can see from the way that the front office took care of Wheeler, Nola. They know it's an organization that if you come here and you perform well, you will be taken care of. It's a franchise that spends money, maybe not Dodgers money, but up there in like the top 5.
Normal money.
And and it's it's incredible how this is transformed to really just a well-run Phillies franchise with the ballpark packed every night. And I mean, wow. 5 years ago.
I know. And I know it was asked of Brian Barber if the success of the team today changes at all how they go into the draft. And he was saying, like, not really, because you really, again, like, this is a success right now, but these aren't players that you're drafting for right now. These are players you're drafting for 4 or 5 years from now. So, like, yes and no, it does take some of the pressure off. I think there are other teams out there that are in such a dumpster fire rebuild mode that you have to draft with a little bit more pressure of getting it correct, because you need these players to be ready maybe a little bit quicker. So it does and does not change things at the same time, in the sense that you're still planning for the future, but you might not have the same pressure as you would if the team was, bottom under 500 and struggling. So the draft this year is going to start this Sunday, and it goes through the 16th. Day 1 on Sunday, the 14th, is the first 2 rounds, as well as the first 2 supplemental rounds. And the second day is rounds 3 through 10. And then the third day is 11 through 20. You can watch, for those curious in the chat, you will be able to watch the draft on ESPN and MLB Network. And then it will be live streamed on MLB.com as well. I know our own Jamie Lynch has been also dropping some great prospect videos for you guys to check out. Some of the different prospects heading into the draft, to get to know them, to see. And he intentionally was targeting who the Phillies might be drafting at number 27. So it is the Cleveland Guardians that draft first, and the Reds, and then the Phillies are not until the 27th pick this year in 2024. But also something that I thought was really interesting as we are getting near to the draft is the fact that Dave Dombrowski did come out and was mentioning how he feels like the Phillies farm system does not get enough respect. Put some respect. He said it doesn't get the acclaim it should. And he was saying that because of the recent rankings that came out for prospects across Major League Baseball. He was saying the outlets have not been giving the Phillies farm system the respect that they deserve. And actually, I kind of agree. I know that there might not be the depth that some other teams have. That's something that has been different, but it was mentioned how under John Middleton, the franchise has really been focusing on bringing in young talent. And in the past 5 or 6 years, they have sacrificed half draft picks after signing free agents who rejected qualifying offers, but more focused on, a wide variety of ways to bring in players. So essentially give the Phillies farm system some respect.
Yeah. I remember in spring training when we had Preston Mattingly on the show.
Yes.
And one of the things he said, I think during the show and after, was just once a farm system gets sort of the tag of, okay, this is the 27th best farm system in the league, or individual players are sort of tagged as not your most sought after prospects, that it's very hard to change minds and opinions. And these guys are going out there, they're performing, they're playing great, they're developing. There's a lag between the performance and the talent level in the system coming through, and publications picking that up.
Yeah,
because I think they start from a place where they look, all right, it's 27th last season. That's where you're going to start, unless we can find some really good reasons to bump you up. And those really good reasons are out there. Not every publication or ranking, internet ranking, whoever does these things is really picking up how much progress the Phillies have made. I think it'll be a little bit of time before sort of the accolades catch up with the actual work that they've done. Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. It's going to take some time. And yes, I know in the chat, Elephant in the Room is saying the same thing. Like, the farm system is better than currently advertised. It's insane. So this year, though, there are 5 Phillies prospects that are in the top 100 list: Andrew Painter, and Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford, Starlin Caba, and Mick Abel. Crawford was a first-round pick back in 2022. He's done well as a center fielder. We've had him on the show, as well as Aiden Miller. And right now he's sitting with a 309, 365, 434 average with 83 stolen bases in his first 3 seasons. Aiden Miller, also another one, picked last year as someone that kind of fell through the cracks a bit because of his injury, and has been a phenomenal power hitter. He actually was moved up, and so he's progressing nicely in his first year and has a 240, 361, 422 slash line with 7 homers on the year. And he was drafted last year in the first round for the Phillies. So there is some young talent that's on the rise. 5 in the top 100 compared to how the Phillies finished with 2 at the end of last season. So the future is bright for the Phillies. It's getting better, and there definitely are some great talented players in the pipes for this team in the future. Yeah, and Andrew Painter in some ways has just become this forgotten man.
I know.
We forget about how excited and how hyped we were for Andrew Painter. Before his injury. He's going to come back, and he's still going to be incredibly young, and he's still has the potential to be, an ace for a franchise for a number of years at a very low cost on his rookie contract. So it's a good time to be a Phillies fan, and I think it's going to stay that way for a while.
We all silly like the mayor.